Hello and welcome to another episode of Exploring Standards. As always, I am your host, Jess, and today I have two guests on the show with me today, which is very nice because I don't often get to have two guests with me. So today I've got Rob Clements. Rob, how are you today?
Yep, very well, Jess. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I have Danny Lee. Danny, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Jess. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So the reason we have Rob and Danny on the show is they have come together to create a new brand, a new business, which is Vaelo Aerospace. And we're going to be talking a bit more about Vaelo Aerospace and their background. Rob, for those who have probably listened to the podcast before, will have heard Rob and they have met Rob before. And they'll know he's the founder and director of Ascent Risk Management, but now he's also the director of strategy at Vaelo Aerospace. Danny has also been on the show before and he is director of operations of Vaelo as well. To start off with our podcast, can I ask you both to introduce yourselves and share your background in aerospace quality and compliance? Rob, I'll get you to go first.
Great. Thank you, Jess. As you say, my name is Rob from Ascent. I founded Ascent over 20 years ago now. And my background was really in IT, so technical services and information security was the big compliance subject of the day and still is a big subject with privacy, GDPR and stuff like that. But as I'm sure you guys know, Ascent expanded into other areas of compliance. So we do lots in health and safety, the environment, many other quality standards that link into that. And that's really where I came across AS 9100 and the aerospace world was as a spin-off from that quality management system discipline. So I'm not an expert myself, which is why I bring experts like Danny into the frame for our clients and how we evolved into where we are now with Vaelo.
So I'm Danny Lee, Director of Operations of Vaelo Aerospace. And how I came about to be in the position I'm in now with Rob, I'd left the Royal Air Force after 15 years, strong background in all things aerospace compliance and quality. And so I started working with Ascent to help their clients become certified to these AS standards. And Rob and I really saw a need for this growth into the market. And so we partnered up and here we are today.
Fantastic. Thank you. This leads us nicely on to my next question, which is what is Vaelo Aerospace and why was it created?
So Vaelo Aerospace, as you've already suggested, Jess, is a specialist aerospace compliance practice. Now, at Ascent, we had already worked with some clients providing AS 9100 services, so it's the quality management system, but specifically to the aerospace supply chain. And that was fine and it worked well and the clients maintained their certification and were doing fine. But in sort of recent times, so we're recording this in 2026, and I'd say maybe the last 18 months or so, we saw at Ascent an increase in demand for this standard and at similar standards. So there's some others in the family that I'm sure Danny will talk about later. And because of that increase, and because at Ascent, we always want to provide the best service to our clients, and we have quite a rigid competence scheme that everyone subscribes to. It got to the point where we felt that aerospace is a little bit different to your standard quality management system work and the consultants that deliver that. And we really wanted specialists, people like Danny that had experience in that setting, as well as the competence and the training around quality management for standards like AS 9100. So that's what led us to look at this joint venture and this spin-off with Vaelo. Is really the demand increased and we wanted to set our standards above your general kind of consultant that does this stuff.
Yeah, I think a key point to add here is we're not coming at this from an approach to just certifying or helping clients become certified through IF accredited certification bodies. The key here is to really help precision engineering, manufacturing and storage and distribution organizations break into the aerospace market and become trusted suppliers within the supply chain for that market. So a different approach, a specialist approach, but one that requires knowledge within not only the industries, but actually how the aerospace sector works, the language that the defense speaks, which is completely different to how the rest of the world speaks. So that's the key integral part to Vaelo, is that interaction between the good work that these organizations are doing and then the need and the demand from the customer. And we facilitate that process.
Okay, thank you. So then I want to know then, what gap in aerospace consultancy market are you aiming to fill?
Yeah, so as I said, specifically the precision engineering, manufacturing, storage and distribution. that makes up the vast majority of the supply chain for the big OEMs and the tier ones. And the market we're really trying to corner is specifically helping those companies bridge the gap between where they are and where they need to be. So they're already experts in their field at manufacturing and precision engineering and storage and onwards distribution, but they want these more secure, bigger, long-term fixed contracts for stability for their organizations, but also to showcase their ability in a different sort of industry. And it's not just the standards that are going to get them there, it's their positioning in the market, it's being able to network with these different customers and buyers and how that's facilitated and supported. So that's really our aim, is to assist those companies with that mission.
Fantastic, thank you. So I guess the big question is then, why launch dedicated aerospace brand, obviously, instead of just delivering this work under Ascent Risk Management?
Yeah, it's certainly a good question. So we could have kept it under Ascent, and I think that would have been perfectly fine. But I think what that would give us is a general consultancy offering. And what we wanted to be really clear about is that the Vaelo and the team there, obviously Danny is heading up the team. We've got other consultants that are very experienced in aerospace as well. And that's all they do. So Danny talked about it being a different language in aerospace. And I think on the consultancy side, on standards, we say the same thing, don't we? ISO standards are a different language. I think with aerospace, you've got double the problem, because you've got the language of the standard, AS 9100, you've also got aerospace language. And what a separate entity does, like Vaelo, is it means we can work across the supply chain. So when we work with customers, we understand better where they are in that chain from beginning to end. So it's not, for us, it's not just about reading the standards document and tick boxing that they comply. And if there's a gap, then we write a policy. I think what we're able to do through Vaelo and through the team there is really understand where does our customer sit in that chain, and how can we help them make the most of this for their business. And I think Danny said earlier, lots of these customers, they're not just doing aerospace work, they're not just doing components for aerospace or storage. They might be in automotive, they might be in other areas, which is great. And we want to support them with that as well. But with our support, we can get them further into the aerospace supply chain and benefiting from those opportunities. So I think we're really well placed to do that.
Okay, then, so how important is trust and reputation in a sector like aerospace when launching a new brand?
But yeah, at any time, I think just trust in consultancy is paramount, isn't it? Because you're working with someone in a way that it's almost a unique position, a consultant, because they go into a company, ask lots of probing questions, and see sometimes some quite sensitive and confidential information about the company. So in any case, it's important, but I think even more so in aerospace, because the stakes are so much higher in aerospace, aren't they? The safety concerns are huge. It's a big target for bad actors, whether that's other states targeting or criminals that think that they can launch cyber attacks and exploit these companies. So it's a really highly targeted sector, as well as being safety critical. That's what a lot of these standards are about, really, is that being into that depth of detail and traceability around what they're working on. So yeah, it's certainly very important to be a trusted partner. And that's why when we built Vaelo, we recognised we needed to be transparent about what we do as far as possible. And we needed structure in place to make sure our people are competent and trustworthy throughout the process. And in that way, enabling us to become that kind of trusted partner to the customer that hopefully extends beyond just the initial engagement and the initial project into helping them deliver kind of a fuller package.
Fantastic. So obviously you're just talking about what Vaelo can offer. So I'd like to know then, how can Vaelo help organizations bridge that gap between where they are currently and then also them becoming a trusted supplier in the aerospace and defense industry?
Yeah, I think it's key just to understand firstly that the Defence Investment Plan is being released as of today. And so it's been going on for the last year or so, meant to be released, and it hasn't. But Sir Keir Starmer has just announced that £80 billion worth of spending in defence specifically needs to be achieved by 2029, and that's year on year. And as such, an additional 15 billion in spending is coming this way for aerospace and defence. So the time to act on this is now. There's never been a better time to break into the aerospace and defence market. And so the way in which we can facilitate that are through the standards that we're qualified in to support our clients achieving certification. So AS9100 for the quality management system for aerospace and defense, AS9110 for maintenance, repair and overhaul, and AS9120 for storage and distribution into the aerospace and defense supply chain. And in order to facilitate that, there are additional accreditations and certifications. So for example, Cyber Essentials Plus and cyber and information security is increasingly becoming more and more important, especially around defense. And as Rob said, there's state actors and other criminals that are looking to gather and exploit this information. So Cyber Essentials Plus is one of the fundamental requirements to help secure that information. The other then is JOSCAR, which is a database of approved suppliers essentially for tier ones and OEMs. And they use this database to be able to find which supply chain, which precision engineers and manufacturers are best suited to provide them with the requirements they need to deliver their projects to, for example, the Ministry of Defence.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting there that Danny's set out the size of the opportunity here in the UK, which is fantastic and certainly something that UK companies should consider accessing. But since we founded Vaelo, Danny and Justin and the other team members have been, I think, in Norway, in the US. We've spoken to people in Germany and across Europe. So it's actually a global business, and there's global alliances, and these supply chains are quite distributed. So again, I think we're well placed to support that as well.
Okay, so say for an example, we've got an organization that's looking to get certified to AS9100 or one of the aerospace certifications and get into that aerospace and defense industry. Why should they be looking at using a consultancy such as Vaelo that specializes in this? Why is it important?
Yeah, I think for me, as somewhat of an outsider to this myself, obviously Dan is the industry expert and the team there. But for me, my perspective was two things really: the competence and the connections that these guys have. In terms of competence, the aerospace world is quite complex, but there are established levels of competence and established certifications that these individuals have. So people like Danny and other members of the team. And alongside consultancy work, some of these guys have audited for certification bodies, so they know what the auditors are looking for. So they've got the experience to back it up. They've got the knowledge of the industry. As Danny said earlier, they can talk the same language, which I think is difficult for a generalist consultant to really effectively grasp. Of course, there's plenty of good people out there, whether they're in general consultancy or if they're one-person bands that are offering support. And sometimes that might be all a client needs and that might work for them. But I would just advise caution there. Look at what you're really getting. Is it just a tick box to get a certificate, which gets you past the first hurdle? But when the big customers come in to audit you themselves, which they will do often, regardless of whether you've got a certificate on the wall or not, you'll still get someone from the customer's compliance team wanted to come on site, wanted to see how you've made this item, what controls you have in place. Is it going to stand up to that test? So I think that's what our guys can do here. And in that way, the connections part of that, I just think the team here are living and breathing this every day. They're meeting many customers, but they're also meeting, as I say, many of the other certification auditors. Some of them audit themselves, but they know the teams that are behind this. They're keeping up to date with the rules and regulations around this whole compliance framework. I just think you just get that extra edge with a specialist firm like Vaelo. So you can just rest assured that when your customer comes in to audit you, we've got the answers and you will have the answers as a customer.
So I'm just wondering then, what can a customer expect if they were to choose to work with Vaelo?
Yeah, the best place always to start is a scoping call. So it's an obligation call where we can discuss what your requirements are, what the timeline is, and more importantly, why is it you want to achieve certification, AS9100, 9110 or 9120? And really what's driving this? Is it commercially driven? Is it inherently driven? Is there a contract that you can see on the horizon that you think you'd be well placed for? And once we understand why it is you're trying to achieve the certification, we can really then start to dig into the gap between where you currently are and where you need to be. And so many of the clients that come to us have ISO 9001 in place already, and that's a really solid framework. But what we tend to find is a lot of the risk management controls aren't quite where they need to be for aerospace and defense. For example, they'll send a supplier questionnaire, that goes off to the supplier, they come back, they get the certificates, they file it away, and they don't touch it again. Whereas in aviation, space and defence, there is an expectation that you maintain the approvals for the supplier, that you are constantly checking and verifying their activities and their work as it comes through the supply chain. You're looking for counterfeit items, for example, and looking where they're sourcing their parts from. So once we understand that gap and where those crucial risks are being mitigated or not in some cases, we can start to build a framework for how we can support you to bolster those processes such that you can reduce your risk profile from a big prime or OEM. So they have the confidence that you can deliver the right thing on time when they need it, and more importantly, to be able to scale. So with all of this investment that's coming through the Ministry of Defence, through the primes and the OEMs and the tier ones, there is going to be an expectation to scale, because things such as drones, they don't wait around, and the technology is growing fast. So it's key that these companies have the ability not only to produce reliable results consistently, but once lent on, that they can actually scale that. So initial scoping call, gap analysis, implement the requirements of the standard around your current operations to make sure it's fit for purpose and we're reducing those risks. And then you go off, certified, and then the world's your oyster from there.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Robert and Danny, for joining me on the show today. It's been fantastic hearing all about Vaelo and what you offer and the gap that you're filling within the industry. What I will do is I will put contact details to Vaelo and both to Robert and Danny in the show notes. So if you want to reach out and continue this conversation a bit further, if you've got any other questions, you can reach out to both those guys directly. Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the podcast. And I'll be back with another episode in a couple of weeks.